All right, everyone. Welcome to the Roxy Racers Pit Crew podcast. I am Mike. I am the voice of Hair Raising Robot, and with me is my co-host, ThatBox.
No,
um, and
everything will be just fine.
everything will be okay. We're also joined by Mr. Hippo. Um, And in today's episode of the Roxy Racers Pit Crew, we are going to talk about we are going to talk about. My buddy Orville and I talked about a potential Ultimate Custom Night sequel or Ultimate Custom Night 2.
You might be wondering why my friends ended up in this situation.
Yeah, it reminded me of this one thing though. Oh my gosh, there he is. There's Orville himself.
And there's my old pal Orville. You don't have to worry about him.
You know, Orville, something tells me that somebody's about to draw.
Are you sure we're not? Yeah, we could be here all day.
Yeah, just wiggle the jaw, wiggle.
Anyways,
Before we actually started this, the way we decided on what topic we talked about, so we basically spun a wheel. It's basically the equivalent of taking a bunch of post-it notes, putting them on the wall, and throwing a dart to see which one it'd stick to. Ultimate Custom Night. What on earth?
adventures.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
I am no longer Mr. Hippo. I am Mr. Dentures.
Yep, everything is fine. Carry on. This is fine.
Oh, Sugar Bob.
Everything is just fine. There's nothing to worry about. You'll be fine.
You know, Orville, I was just wondering, when did I get a top row of teeth?
Now that's a pretty good question. More importantly, when did these pixels shift a little bit? But we're not going to dwell on that. Carry on.
So, one thing we were kind of talking about when preparing for this episode is who would make this Ultimate Custom Night sequel. And I think we both agreed that it would be it could be somebody that speaks English better than I do. It would be Steel Wool. So, and it would most likely be a fully fledged 3D game. There would obviously be limitations with that. So like there wouldn't be a 50-20 mode because with how highly detailed Steel Wool likes to make their models, you know, I'm pretty sure even like the best gaming PC out there would just have a complete total meltdown if you had like 50 animatronics coming at you at once, or the game itself would crash. I seem to have ate too much whipped cream, Orville.
He just has a big smile on his face. He's so happy to be here. I actually gave him troll face.
Problem?
See, I think we seem to have a problem here.
Oh my gosh, what would Orville look like with that? Oh. Oh no. So
Carry on.
basically there would be like, so some things would be is the
Absolute.
oh my god, oh that is cursed. Oh, just keep switching back again like that? Like you
Yeah,
were
let me ask.
before?
Alright,
Oh,
let's get
oh
one.
my gosh. That is crazy. That looks like an AI generated image of like if a piece if like an AI didn't know what Orville didn't know what Mr.
Oh, so
Hippo
this is what Orbital looks like, right?
if didn't know what Mr. Hippo looked like and then like tried animating him. Oh my gosh, that is so cool.
You gotta get an air cool frame like this.
Yeah. Um so what I was kind of thinking would happen in this Ultimate Custom Night 2 made by Steel Wool is that instead of having like as many animatronics as you want active at the same time, in the character select menu, there would be like a 5 slots where you could fill in with like up to 5 characters, and instead of like going all having the difficulty going all the way up to 20, the difficulty would be kind of based on a color system. So like blue would probably be like the easiest, green would be easy, yellow would be medium, orange would be hard, and red would be max difficulty. So like the max mode would be called like all red mode. I don't know if people would like agree with that, or do you think they would do a number system and keep things traditional?
Hypothetically, I feel like realistically, I don't know. Let me try to like essentially. I feel like if they were to do another Ultimate Custom, ideally they would have as many characters available at one time as possible and just keep it traditional that way. Like it would, but at the same time, if they were to go for a non-linear structure, I suppose something like that could theoretically work, depending on how the characters are.
Well, the reason why I think you wouldn't be able, well, there's 2 reasons. Oh no, his
Oh
head's
dear.
floating away. Um, the I need to go now. My planet needs me. Unfortunately, my body does not. My body's not ready.
Yeah.
The 2 reasons why I don't think Steel Wool would allow for more than 5 characters at a time is because one, the brown hippo, is because one, it would be way too difficult, especially with like the game mechanics of some of the characters. So like as we were talking about before we started this podcast, some characters from Secret of the Mimic would make it into the game. So, like Nurse Dolly. And a really cool idea that I think would happen, that I think Steel Wool would come up with if they made an Ultimate Custom Night 2, is that the room you play in, like it would still be like a custom map. You could choose like what map you want, but the map would transform depending on like which 5 characters you would have active at a time. So like say for example, you chose Nurse Dolly from Secret of the Mimic and you were playing in the FNAF 1 location. Well, you would be in the middle of like the FNAF 1 like party room where like all the tables are, but in the middle of it would be this giant conveyor belt going all the way down the hallway, and Nurse Dolly would be getting her exercise as she would be running towards you, and it would act exactly like that boss battle. But if you had Nurse Dolly active at the same time as like 9 other characters, or 10 other characters, or 20 other characters, like you wouldn't be able to keep preoccupied with her while dealing with everyone else. Like she would get you at some point if you were dealing with more than 4 other characters at one time. And that's just a character running towards you on a conveyor belt that's always in the room with you. And the other reason why I think Steel Wool wouldn't allow more than 5 characters at a time to go up against is because they wouldn't want like a whole bunch of the battery is now talking.
It's his turn. He can have a turn.
I've seemed to have gone mad. The batteries are now talking to me.
That's common mistake to make. It's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's all right.
Is they wouldn't want to like bug test like having a bunch of characters running at you at the same time. Like, could you imagine the kind of playtesting nightmare it would be in a fully fledged 3D game where you have like 10 animatronics going at you at once, and as a playtester, it's your job to see if any one of them bug out while you're supposed to, like, as a playtester, you have to do some crazy things. Like, some of those achievements you can get in games, playtesters have to make sure they're achievable. A playtester's job is not easy. So could you imagine the nightmare scenario if Steel Wool were to make an Ultimate Custom Night 2? If they had like a 120 mode where like 100 animatronics were coming at them at once, and they
for example, all these Mr. Hippos coming after you.
Yeah, and it's like you had to find a bug with one of them. See if one of them was bugging out while still trying to make it to the end. A 520 mode? Yeah, that's manageable. You could still playtest for bugs.
Yeah, the famous Orville elephant bug in the all Mr. Hippo challenge. That was a pretty big bug that they had to deal with.
An army of Mr. Hippos with their backup dancer, Orville the elephant. He's a great magician and a great dancer. Oh no, they're all dancing. Work it. So like a 520 mode would be completely manageable while looking for bugs. Because you do have to keep like playtesting in mind and bug testing in mind. I know with some of Steel Wool's games, it doesn't look like they bug test for anything at all, but I do want to give the benefit of the doubt that they do bug test some parts of their games at least. And I definitely think that they would bug test like the majority of like an Ultimate Custom Night 2 before shipping it out, especially considering, a lot of people have fond memories of the first Ultimate Custom Night. I remember when that game came out, it was such a big deal because not only did people think that that was like the final chapter and send off to Five Nights at Freddy's, which it kind of was, in a way. It was a, what are you doing to Mr. Hippo?
This is effect. They call this effect polar inversion.
Oh my gosh. You turned him into an Osamu Sato art piece. I am just not mesmerized. Mesmerized is the right word. I am just completely mesmerized by what you are doing with Mr. Hippo right now. You are making such beautiful artwork.
I'm glad that Mr. Hippo won solitaire.
Yeah, just instead of the cards, it's just Mr. Hippo's head just bouncing everywhere as duplicates are made.
You won Mediocre Melody solitaire.
Oh my god. Oh no, he looks like one of those creatures. I forget what monster movie this was, but he looks like one of those creatures where like his face can extend and like bite you. Um but in a way, Ultimate Custom Night 2 was a send-off to the classic slash Gen 1 FNAF area. And oh my god, that just looks like he's like going through a bead curtain made out of his ears and hats.
I'm so happy for him.
He got a merchandise branding deal making curtains. Um
Results may vary.
yeah. And so like so with like a proper send off to like Gen 1 Five Nights at Freddy's, as some people call Scott Cawthon's games, a lot of people would be like expecting the same level of structure, I guess you could say, or like you know, like a really sturdy game. But
Yeah.
a reason why I think we're not going to get another Ultimate Custom Night for a while at least is because Ultimate Custom Night was a send-off to Scott Cawthon's games. It was basically his... Oh, wow, that looks kind of creepy.
Yeah, Feather Object can do some funky things.
How did you make Mr. Hippo look creepy? Like, you should be proud of that accomplishment.
Absolute cinema.
Absolute cinema. You should work for Scott Cawthon. Look at what I can do. How did you actually...
I love using one effects in Paint. They should really hire me to do this.
It's like, Scott Cawthon would be amazed. He'd be like, how did you make Mr. Hippo actually creepy? You're hired. Imagine what you could do with the glam rocks. And then the artists at Steel Wool who made the glam rocks are like, yeah, you're not going anywhere near our babies. Whoa! And then Mr.
Hippo exploded.
He exploded and temporarily went to hell, or went in the Red Lake. Lead
Or
the
both.
demon to his demons.
What they did not want to tell you about is the Mr. Hippo beat promotion.
So,
You could do some quirky things to people.
yeah. Whoa! Oh my gosh! Mr. Hippo really needs to eat a burger now.
I guess that's what happens if you remove the background.
He's a ghost. Ghost of the ghosts of the Hippobus.
Yeah.
Oh wow! There's his face.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, there's a different PNG for you to look at for a while.
So the reason why I don't think we're gonna get an Ultimate Custom game for a while is because an Ultimate Custom game is basically like a send-off to like a generation, and I don't think we're done with the current story Steel Wool wants to tell. So like I believe they're gonna be doing more things with like Gregory, Cassie, Roxanne, Glamrock Freddy, Vanessa. I don't know if they're going to be doing anything else with Vanny. They kind of just basically washed their hands of Vanny, which I don't want to make this podcast about Vanny, but it's like they kind of did Vanny dirty. But I do think if they were to make like an Ultimate Custom Night 2 to like send off the security breach / mimic generation of Five Nights at Freddy's, Vanny would definitely be part of the characters you could go up against. Like, what would her game mechanic be? Because she actually had quite a few mechanics you could she had quite a few gameplay mechanics when she actually decided to show up in Security Breach. You really love making that hippo dance. But what gameplay mechanics do you think Vanny would have in an Ultimate Custom Night game?
Well, that kind of brings up a question of what would the mechanics in general be? Like, for different characters? Would there be doors, power?
So,
Like,
oh yeah, that's actually, you bring up a good point. So, how I think an Ultimate Custom Night 2 game would play out is instead of just being stuck in an office and being able to look left and right, like you'd still be stuck in a room, but you would be able to fully run around because, as I mentioned earlier, if Steel Wool were to make an Ultimate Custom Night 2, Nurse Dolly would definitely be included because I don't know if people would agree with me, but I think Nurse Dolly was like one of the funnest parts about Secret of the Mimic. I really enjoyed that. You're just wow. Nurse Dolly was one of the best parts of Secret of the Mimic, and so she would definitely be included as like one of the characters. And in order to go up against her, you would need to be able to run on the conveyor belt and like press the levers that would show up in the middle of the room you were in. And the only way you could do that is by having a fully fledged 3D game with a fully mapped out room that you could like run around and run up to the doors and run up to anywhere else and any other characters that are in the room, regardless of if they're harmful or not. So like I was like thinking of an example of like how this game would play. Say you made a game, you say you decided to play around where you had Nurse Dolly from Secret of the Mimic, Roxanne from Help Wanted 2, and Foxy from Five Nights at Freddy's 1. In this scenario, you would have a conveyor belt with the levers as Nurse Dolly is constantly walking to you throughout the entire night. And while that's going on, when you get her far enough away by like putting trash on the conveyor belt and having her pushed all the way to the other end of the hallway, which would allow you to buy you enough time to do other things, you could run up to the cameras in the room to check to see if Foxy has left his cove, because he would still have the same gameplay mechanic from like the first game. And if he has escaped from his cove, if Nurse Dolly is like on the other side of the conveyor belt, or she's just approaching the middle of the conveyor belt, it would still buy you enough time to like run up to the door and close it just in time to prevent Foxy from coming into the room. But while you're dealing with Foxy and Nurse Dolly, in the corner of the room would be Roxanne sitting at a table in front of a mirror with makeup and stuff next to her, and you have to keep her satisfied by giving her a makeover every once in a while. And once she's satisfied, you can go back to your battle with Nurse Dolly and keeping an eye on Foxy. But every once in a while you're dealing with Nurse Dolly and Foxy, you would hear in the corner of the room, "I changed my mind, I want something else." And then you would have to rush to Roxanne, do a new hairstyle and makeup and stuff. And it wouldn't take as long as in the Help Wanted 2 minigame. Like, it'd be a much shortened version where you wouldn't have to do as much. Oh my gosh. Yeah, my reaction is the same as Mr. Hippo's.
This will be 2015 designs.
Yeah. So it would be a much shorter version of the Help Wanted 2 minigame. So it would like only take you 10 seconds, maybe 20 seconds to deal with Roxanne in the room. And then you could go back to your battle with Nurse Dolly and checking Foxy on the cams. Plus it would still give you enough time to like go up against two other animatronics. Like, that's why I'm like thinking there would only be 5 animatronics you would go up at a time. And the room that you're stuck in, you wouldn't be able to leave the room, but the room that you're stuck in you could fully walk around. You could like open the doors on like the side, or like depending on which animatronic character you're going up against, the room would change in accordance to them. So like say you're dealing with characters that change into event. When you deal with characters that transform into event,
The famous. Did you know the Mimic can turn into a Ben?
I wouldn't be surprised if the mimic could disguise itself as a walking vent.
Nobody was prepared for that secret.
Yeah. If you're dealing with characters that crawl into vents, like a vent would show up in the room. So basically, like how the procedural generation would go would be depending on the characters. Like if you were to spawn into the room with no animatronics or one animatronic, you would have a mostly empty room that's stylized. You would have a mostly empty map that's stylized after a room from one of the previous games, whether it be a game from FNAF 1, or like say like the atrium from you alright, Big Patch? Whether it be like the pizzeria from FNAF 1 or the atrium from Security Breach, or I'm trying to think what would be a good area from Secret of the Mimic that could work as an ultimate custom night room.
Like maybe that starting area with all the characters.
Oh
dancing
yeah,
around.
yeah. The not warehouse area. The I forget what it's called. The starting area. I want to say warehouse, but I don't think that's what I'll just call it the warehouse. People in the comments, if they want to, can correct me on what the starting area is called. Oh geez. Oh, okay, you're just grabbing something for that image. Oh, this should be another meme. And another fun thing that I think Steel Wool would totally do, speaking of rooms, is part of the difficulty curve would be and setting your own difficulty is like rooms of different sizes. So like I said, if you want like a relatively easy time going up against the animatronics, you could choose like the party area from the FNAF 1 map, because it would be a small condensed map. It would be a relatively easy time dealing with all the animatronics. But say you wanted a really big challenge, you could choose the atrium with like the stage from Security Breach. Could you imagine trying to go up against Nurse Dolly on a long ass conveyor belt in the middle of the Pizzaplex atrium, and then way off in like the far distant corner at one of the tables, you just hear Roxanne call out to you, "I changed my mind. I want something else. You have about 20 seconds to get over here before I get angry." And you're like, you're still at the conveyor belt, and you look back at her, you're like, the hell am I gonna do? Because that would greatly increase the challenge. Like having maps that actually are more spaced out and require you to take a little more time to actually get to some of the characters, even if they're not hostile. So I hope that kind of like answers your question of like what the general gameplay would be like, in my opinion, anyways.
All right.
So based on all that, what kind of gameplay mechanic do you think Vanny would have that would fit in with like an ultimate custom night? Because I'm actually curious to hear like what you personally think Vanny would be like in this kind of game.
Maybe Vanny would play more like I guess a long range character that sits in the back watching you, and anytime you're not really paying attention to her, she's just gonna start sneaking upon you.
Oh, so you mean kind
It's
of like
kind of like Punch Trap in a way, just wanting to keep her distance.
one thing
You don't,
I oh sorry.
you don't necessarily want to get in a staring contest where you're staring at her all night because she might just lunge at you, but you just want to make sure that if she gets up and personal, you keep your distance right as you know she's behind you.
So basically kind of like a mix between like a weeping angel from Doctor Who or the Endos the security from Security Breach and Ruin mixed with a game of freeze tag. So
Yeah.
as long as you're looking in her direction, she won't move. But to make her stand out, because some people might want the endos in this Ultimate Custom Night too. As Freddy just zoomed out of here, he's like, "Nyum nyum nyum."
I'm gonna get you.
Yeah,
Oh, well, it seems I've been spotted. Oh,
yeah. I gotta go now. I forgot I left the birder on at home. Oh,
well, that's easy. That's unfortunate.
so what what I think would happen to make Vanny stand out from the endos, because you would be right. Vanny would pretty much be in the same room as you at all times. She would be one of those characters who stays in the room with you. And as long as you're looking in her direction, she won't really move. Or she might take like one step and, like, just wave to you. She will like wave to you and, say one of her many famous quotes like, "Are you having fun yet?" Or "See you soon." And she could even like maybe distract you by like acting all flirty well, she's in your line of sight. But what would make her different from the endos is that there would be a moment where, like, depending on an RNG timer system, where she would actually get fed up and kind of cheat to allow her to move by activating like her distortion effect. So like in the middle of the game, while you're dealing with like Nurse Dolly and Foxy and Vanny's in the room, she might decide to put on her distortion effect. And for like the next 10 seconds or so, you would have to play keep away from her as she chases you. And then, like, once the distortion effect goes away, wherever she is in the room now, you have to keep an eye on her as she continues to flirt with you and make lines and stuff, and only move when you look away. And because you're dealing with other animatronics, you would have to look away from her sometimes, which would allow her to creep up on you. She wouldn't run towards you, but she would like slowly dance towards you, and you would even see her in the corner of your eye, which would actually be pretty creepy. I don't know, that's kind of like my idea of what Vanny would be like in an Ultimate Custom Night 2. Do you think that would actually be kind of fun to deal with, or would you think that would get kind of annoying and unfair, especially in like situations where like the difficulty is really ramped up?
Like as a whole, like it just kind of depends on how those characters are stacked together, depending on what other gimmicks you got combined together. Like a smaller map, her coming up to you over time could be more of a problem when there's less time to interact. But a wider area, you got plenty of time to deal with her.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
guess.
perhaps,
Oh,
and perhaps in like an area, like if there was a bigger arena, you might want to speed her up over time, just to make sure you can't just ring around the Rosie to deal with her.
yeah. Yeah, so that is actually another good point. Like, we're just making more and more cases of how this game would be fun. Because, yeah, I just realized, like, in some cases, yes, a smaller room would make things easier, like going up against Nurse Dolly. But In other cases, having a smaller room would actually be a detriment and actually make some things nearly impossible. Like for a character who stays in the room and chases you or can move when you're not looking at them, yeah, that would be extremely problematic to be in a tight room that feels like you're packed in like a sardine. So like if you went up against Vanny and an Endo at the same time, that would get extremely problematic like right away. Cause especially like if they corner you on either side. So you have to look at one, allowing the other to like approach you. So like what I imagine these rooms would be like is that they would be very open. Like there would be large spaces between like tables if there were like tables in some of these rooms. And steel wool would like allow very like open pathways to allow animatronics to not only like run around but allow you to like pull a fast one. Hi kitties. But this actually kind of reminds me of like, you know, that one ending in Security Breach where they get wow, I've made a monster.
Don't worry, guys. We're revisiting Pizzeria Simulator. All is fine.
Yeah. Um so like steel wool would allow you to pull like fast ones on some animatronics. And like there would be a grace period in this game where if you fail, you are allowed to like run around the room to hold off the animatronic until the night ends. So like again, going back to like the Nurse Dolly example, let's say you're busy with the other animatronics. You take too long at Roxy's station to give her a beauty makeover, and you completely forget about Nurse Dolly, and she gets off the conveyor belt on your side and she starts running after you. Well, you would be allowed to run around the room away from her. But because you now have to run away from Nurse Dolly, you basically have to allow yourself to fail with all the other animatronics in the room with you. So this would mean that at some point, Roxanne would get fed up with you not coming to her table and doing a makeover with her, and she would get up from her table and start chasing you around as well. And if you also have Vanny in there who you're not keeping an eye on, and an Endo, you could see how things could get really hectic until like 6 o'clock comes around. But you would still have a chance to win the night. It's like a win-fail scenario, if that makes sense.
Like a second chance, but overall harder than what you start with.
Yeah, it's like it's a grace period. And some players might even challenge themselves by purposely failing some of these animatronics by allowing them into the room and seeing if they can hold off a conga line of animatronics. Like I could imagine like some very famous like speedrunning live streamers allowing themselves to fail and have like a conga line of like Foxy and Toy Bonnie and Roxy
And famous Ned Bear.
and Ned Bear, if he makes it into the game, just chasing them all throughout the room, especially if it's like the atrium. I could see people like making funny joke videos where they juke the animatronics around the tables and stuff. I don't think you'd be allowed to go up the escalators. Like the escalators would be blocked off. You would only have access to like the main floor with the stage, but you could juke them using the tables and the stage, and you wouldn't be able to go into like any of the photo booths or anything because they would be sealed off too. But you could like juke these characters and stuff like that. Like failing Like, the thing I've always said about games is that failing should even be fun. And that's a way that, like, failing at Ultimate Custom Night 2 could be fun. Is that even though you failed to stop the animatronic from entering the room, you could still run around. Seal Wolf. Did you purposely misspell them?
Yes.
Okay.
Famous company Seal Wolf.
There's a famous company, Seal Wolf. We gotta hire. It's ran by bootleg Golden Ned Bear. I just love this scenario going on. It makes absolutely no goddamn sense. You've got.
The famous Phantom Mangle mechanic where sometimes if you stare at her for too long, she activates her laser beam attack.
Yeah, it's like you got a decapitated Nightmare Mangle, eye beaming JJ, who's going owie and looks like she's eating an ice cream sandwich or a chocolate bar or something. You got Golden Dead Bear waving to the bottom of the screen while looking at what's going on with JJ. And in the corner of the screen, you just got Seal Wolf, please hire. This is what I can do. You need me on your team. Look at the beautiful art I can create. Graphic design is my passion. Oh my gosh.
And don't forget Mr. Hugs. He will solve all of our problems.
Yeah. So yeah. So like one of the biggest issues I have with like game developers and like modern games, I guess you could say this is in all games, is that they don't make like failing your missions fun and like encourage you to go back to retrying the challenge. There have been games that I've played where even failing a game can be fun. And you're like, oh well, I failed, but it was fun. And that I got to witness an extra thing that people who didn't fail this mission never got to witness. And that was kind of cool, actually. Or, I get to, in some games, you can unlock a new mission by, what did you do to Mr. Hugs?
Don't worry, Phantom Mango now has a body. We're all good now.
You might want to
I fixed your problem.
You might want to attach the neck. The neck's kind of dislocated. It might need to go see a chiropractor.
There you go.
Beautiful. Just oh my god! You should put the vacuum mangle on Ned Bear's shoulder. That would just make it just the most beautiful. And then you gotta save it and send it to me, because this is beautiful. You made art. It's like Breaking Bad. You made art, Walter.
Thank you, DSi photo camera.
Yeah. But yeah, so like so allowing you to have fun while failing a game should be important, and you could do that with an Ultimate Custom Night sequel.
This is what all loading screens should be like.
Oh my gosh. Actually, I could imagine something like this for like the loading screens of Ultimate Custom Night 2. Just like Steel Wool has a contest where people like send in fan art, and the conditions for the fan art is that you purposely have to make the most silly, ludicrous situations out there. I imagine if they did a contest like this beautiful masterpiece you made of absolute software engineering would make it in. It would be probably one of the most goddamn hilarious things people would experience from just a loading screen.
Owie.
There we go. Oh, I just thought of something you could add to the picture. Put rocket boosters under JJ. She didn't make it in time. Her rocket boosters were a little slow.
Don't worry, we got something better.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, what are you gonna do?
Yep. Just gotta get the layers together.
Oh, oh, have bootleg Dead Bear hold them.
There you go. Here you go, Jay. Here you go, DD. You can have Mister. No, you can have number one crate hold you together. Everything will be just fine.
Yeah.
Everything will be okay.
Poor bootleg Dead Bear. He's literally holding this whole entire seat ticket.
Howie. And I'm number one crate.
Oh my! You just keep adding to this. We could add Pan Stand to the background. I don't know if you have a picture. Oh my gosh, there he is. People are watching this and they're like, what the hell is going on?
This is what peak DSI photo cameras like.
Oh my gosh.
Edit, yes, recolor whatever you want.
This reminds me of that one meme. Wait a minute. Who are all of you?
The omnipresent handstand. How will this resolve the Biobase 7?
Well,
That's a pretty good question.
Well, somebody made a theory that MapBot is what truly holds the FNAF universe together, but little did everyone know it was actually Panstan that is the god of the FNAF world. That is ever.
Oh. Everyone that has ever had eyes can be thanked by Panstan, one of our greatest models. He was way ahead of his time.
Yeah.
He was too new.
Panstan, our ever-present omniscient Phaz god that watches over everyone. We are so blessed to have such a figure.
Thank you, Panstan, for solving all of our problems.
Yes. Anytime we have a lingering question about FNAF,
we should ask Panstan.
Panstan's the answer. How many bytes were there in the series? Panstan. What was Vanny's purpose? Panstan. Why didn't Vanny show up in Ruin? Panstan.
Everyone wanted to visit Panstan's aquarium.
Oh, I just thought of what Trash and the gang could do in Ultimate Custom Night 2. So you know like how I said that if you fail an event or if there's an animatronic in your room whose whole mechanic is that they chase you in some way or they try to get close to you? What on earth? Or get a little hungry and decide to eat a bunch of lollipops?
Yeah, that was a classic problem. The problem with Nightmare Baby is that he was actually really hungry, and to solve his problem, you have to feed him a really big lollipop. That's all he wanted, after all.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually his gameplay mechanic.
He's just really hungry.
If there was just like a giant stack.
Like, have you ever been... Everyone talks about why are the animatronics so mad. It's just that Nightmare Baby wanted a lollipop. He was just very hungry.
Well, why do the animatronics get quirky at night? They're all just a little hungry.
Like, have you ever considered that they never fed the animatronics? Gosh.
Yeah, like, why do you think Chica keeps going into the kitchen? She's looking for the pizza.
I have to mention this one frame.
Oh my... Why does he look adorable?
I love this frame.
It's like
it was just one day I just kind of stumbled by it. It's like this is what his icon will be one day.
Nightmare Baby, my beloved child. You know, if I ever had kids, that's probably what my son would look like. Razor sharp teeth and all. Because any children I would produce would be nightmare abominations that not even the old ones could ever foretold were coming. I am just so nice to myself. Yeah, my children will be nightmare creatures if I ever have any. They'll just be abominations. Not even Cthulhu could look upon the children I produce. I'm actually one of the old ones. That's just how hideous I look.
Does Scott ever think about this when he was making FNAF 1? That somebody out there would do this one day?
No, I don't think anyone would ever, when anyone makes anything, they would consider somebody.
Now this will be the Ultimate Custom Night 2 icon.
Yeah, I don't think when anyone makes anything or any kind of franchise that they would ever consider anyone make absolute amazing art with their assets in a paint or Photoshop program.
This is why you leave your kids unattended and let them play with every PNG available.
Parenting tips from ThatBox. Leave your kids unattended with the Photoshop program. They'll turn out just fine.
Just give them access to plushtrap.png and everything will be just fine.
Yeah.
They'll become best friends.
What's the worst that could happen? But with like Trash in the Gang, so since there would be animatronics whose sole mechanics would be to stay in the room with you and like try to get close to you or try to chase you, or you would have some sort of boss battle with them the entire time, Trash in the Gang could be used as like obstacles that either get in your way or you could strategically place to put in the way of certain animatronics you deal with. And yes, you could use that to cheese some of the animatronics. So like say for example, you're going up against Nurse Dolly and you don't really want to deal with her, but she's getting too close to you. You could grab Trash in the Gang and put it in front of the conveyor belt so that she couldn't get off it. But you could wear funny. Oh my, that should be an animated GIF. But you could also solve the issue by like having it be like a time or strength based system. So like the animatronics could slowly push them out of the way if they get in their way of like going after you. So like you can put Trash in the Gang in front of Nurse Dolly's conveyor belt and it would stop her for a little while you deal with the animatronics, but after a while she could just push them out of the way. And you could hear like crashing sounds and like a voice line from her as you hear her steel high heels clatter after you. Or like, you know, in a vice versa way, they could get in your way when an animatronic's chasing you in the room, but you could push them out of the way, if not outright grab them. He looks like he's wearing a ski mask. I'm ready for the great frontier. Oh my. Oh no! It's Scully. It's Plush Skull.
It's Skull Trap.
Yeah.
You know, the famous Skull Trap encounter. They should make that the new AR character. But sadly AR might not be able to do that though.
I don't.
Sorry.
AR is on.
Sorry, Mr. AR.
Yeah. Actually, he looks like an Undertale character.
Ah, human.
If I'm not Sans, I'm Plans. Oh my gosh.
Don't worry, you can visit my brother tomorrow.
I don't know why, but I feel like you should put the text above or below him that just asks the question, feeling hungry? What are we doing? Like, oh my gosh. Hunger feed. Hunger feed. Stop. Go. Red. Blue. Wow. So yeah, so like there's a lot of like characters you could put in the game with like interesting mechanics, and not all the characters would have to be like characters that come after you or just distract you. Some of them could literally just be like stationary characters. Like you could have the vacuum bot from Secret of the Mimic just run around and just be like something that the animatronics could trip over when they get into the room. That could be its mechanic. It does nothing else but just make animatronics trip that are chasing you, and it could make you trip. So it's like a double-edged sword system. Look at all the I was about to say look at all the beautiful art you made.
Yeah, it's a little unstable, so I might need. They could not handle pants down.
Yeah.
We got save space for pants down.
Can anything handle the god tier that is Panstan?
That's a really good question that we'll have to answer the question. Is Panstan top 1 in Ultimate Custom Night 2?
Oh no. Oh no. Oh, don't tell me. Oh, I was going to be like, I thought you were going to put Circus Baby's face over Panstan. Oh! Oh my gosh. Oh no. Oh no. The baby. I'm the baby. Gotta love. Oh no. No. Oh, you're not doing what I think you're about to do. Oh my gosh, that is so cursed.
Welcome to Circus Betty Babs, and check out her Circus Babs.
Oh.
Will you take care of the Circus Babs?
What have you done?
Thank you, Scott Coffin.
Oh my god. The face on Circus Baby.
This is exactly what Scott thought the series would turn out 11 years later.
How did you make Circus Baby look absolutely traumatized?
The trauma has kicked in several years ago.
She's seen things that she's seen things that you wouldn't believe. Secret of the Circus Baby. Oh my gosh. The red's kind of hard to see, but I appreciate the sentiment. Oh my gosh, that's worse. Deep fried. Oh my gosh, that blue is really... The blue is really messing with the colors you're choosing for the font. Maybe if there's like a shadow behind the text. Oh. Oh wow.
Yeah, put an effort with this.
This is just amazing. The kind of stuff that you see on podcasts. Only
Where else can you find Secret of the Circus Baby Bab?
Yeah. Could you imagine if like you could import, like if there were like picture frames in some of the maps in like Ultimate Custom Night 2 where you could like put your own pictures in the
Make your own animatronic. Or the gimmick is that you can make your own character into the game.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
Phantom Baby isn't on the roster ball, just make him.
That could be actually, that would be a really endearing that'd be like a really endearing gameplay mechanic for Ultimate Custom Night 2. Make your own animatronic. And I just thought of this. Like, at the beginning of Ultimate Custom Night 2, you only start with like a small handful of animatronics. And these animatronics, you can use their parts to make your own animatronic in like the workshop. So you could like go to the workshop that's in like Secret of the Mimic. It would be like updated and modernized. Like in the middle of the room, there would be like a tube or something with like a base animatronic, and then you could like select from a menu of like what parts you want the animatronic to have from like already available characters. So you could like I would have an animatronic that would have the head of the puppet with like the top half of Nightmare Freddy and the bottom half of Sun. Or like if you could do more customization options, I would put Sun's head on Nightmare Foxy's body, give him Mr. Hippo's right arm, Happy Frog's left arm, and then give him like the twig legs of like Nightmare Yod, and just watch that abomination come towards you. The custom animatronic would have the same gameplay mechanic Ricardo. We would name our custom animatronic Ricardo. Why? Because we can. Oh my god.
This is exactly what Scott Cawthon meant by "wasn't me."
Yep.
Yep. This is exactly how this is the direction the series should go.
Is it weird that I want to be hugged by the thing you made?
The most huggable character in the series.
Most huggable character in the franchise. Oh no.
Second most.
Second most, yeah. Second most huggable character. Oh no, you're putting together what I oh my gosh. Oh, I can't wait to see what you come
Carry
up
on.
with. Yeah. So I'm just trying to think what gameplay mechanic would a custom animatronic have?
And perhaps there's like a basic algorithm that you can do. Like maybe there's a basic programming language, like using basic. Like here's a basic Scratch level engine, where it's like here's some building blocks, and it's like if the character's in this, if you're looking away from this character, they go forward, or if they're in this bubble, run away.
Actually, what I thought of is that you could make your own custom animatronic out of parts from already available animatronics, and then you could give them like whatever gameplay mechanic you want from the already available mechanics. So like in a way, it could be like if you want to have like two of the same animatronic, that is how you could do it, is with your own animatronic. And this way you could like even though it would technically be a mirror animatronic, if you wanted it to be a mirror animatronic, you could still tell the difference between the two. So like if you wanted to do two Nurse Dolly battles, you could have your custom made, absolutely beautiful work of art animatronic run on its own treadmill beside Nurse Dolly's treadmill, and have both of them come towards you if you wanted to do that. I'm not saying that like the custom animatronic would always be a mirror animatronic, but if you wanted to, you could make it a mirror animatronic. If you wanted to, you could replace Nurse Dolly with your custom animatronic on the treadmill by just setting its gameplay mechanic to be Nurse Dolly's. And I think that would actually be a really fun thing that would add a bunch of replayability. Oh my gosh, that is this thing making it dance. You gotta give it Sun's head if you have like Sun.
Ah, what's I don't know how good my
No, no,
icon for
the puppets.
puppet. Okay, like
Or well, I'll
normal
let you
puppet.
decide, puppet or Sun, because we already got Nightmare Own. We got Nightmare Own for the legs. We should probably do a completely separate head. So like Sun or Moon for the head. Oh my gosh. Oh no!
We'll buy a processor, but now we gotta find where the masterpiece is. There he is.
I present to you the most beautiful animatronic ever made. It is Fazbear Entertainment. Could you just imagine this thing walking down Nurse Dolly's treadmill towards you with that kind of animation?
Or you could just do like Steam has Steam Workshop, so it's like theoretically you could just say, yeah, you can program the character however you want to, and then just upload to the workshop, and then have the top character be Ronald McDonald again for a
Yeah,
week.
the mods would be amazing in this ultimate custom night game. But now, like, since you brought it up, by putting her head on the picture, would Vanessa actually be one of the characters in Ultimate Custom Night 2?
As a whole, I feel like it would probably just be humans or just animatronics. I don't think they're gonna put in humanoid characters.
That.
Like maybe,
Oh,
like the only one that really made sense at the time was Phone Guy, and that was kind of the exception to the rule more than anything.
but if we were to only have animatronic characters in Ultimate Custom Night 2, Vanny wouldn't be able to
Well,
be.
Banks the exception to the rule, but I mean like normal like characters that can kill you type thing,
Oh
or characters
yeah,
that impact you. That I don't think they would put stuff like, oh, Gregory now seals your iPhone if you look away for too long.
Gregory Seal. Well, I was meaning like out of like characters that were hostile towards you, because the reason why I was asking is Vanessa was hostile towards you in Security Breach. She could.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah, she could technically do that, but let's be honest, it's so minor that most people wouldn't mind if. Like, maybe there's a way you can make those types of characters work, albeit it's kind of one of those. I don't necessarily know if it'd be the first priority or.
yeah. I don't think too many people would be broken up if Vanessa didn't make it into Ultimate Custom Night 2. I mean, like,
Fandom will be mad if you don't include Mr. Hippo and
oh
Master
yeah,
Frog.
Mr. Hippo, definitely. Yeah, I guess this is the portion of the podcast where we talk about like what characters would make it in. We're not gonna like try to list every single character that would make it into the game, because that's another thing we kind of talked about before starting the podcast. We actually had kind of a long discussion. Should we actually try to name each and every character that would make it into Help Wanted 2? I think I said that like the podcast would go
Okay,
on
guys,
for
will
like a
Princess
month.
from Princess Quest be a character?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I don't think the princess from Princess Quest would make it in. Cause I don't think like any game mechanics like that would make it in. Could you imagine trying to play Princess Quest while fending off other animatronics? I don't think you could do like the
How
one.
will Psychic Friend Fredbear impact the match mode?
Yeah, like cuz the fan game, the cursed attraction, that's what it was called, right?
The glitched
The
attraction, I
glitched
believe.
attraction, sorry. Um the glitched attraction tried doing that, where like in the FNAF 3 area you had to play like an arcade game, as you had to fend off both Springtrap and Dreadbear, and a lot of players hated that area because the arcade game was kind of confusing itself, as you're just making 8-bit Fredbear just spin. Is he spinning on
Yeah.
his back, or is he like doing kind of like a gear windmill thing? I'm a windmill, yeah.
His head got stuck in the ground.
um, so
That's
there
unfortunate.
there wouldn't be any gameplay mechanics like that in Ultimate Custom Night 2. But going back to like Vanessa and like some characters that wouldn't make it in, I think the only people who would be choked up about Vanessa not making it into Ultimate Custom Night 2 would be the people who would want to make more white woman jump scare memes.
Yes.
It,
Shouts to, shouts to Fredbear.
yeah, shout outs to Fredbear, creepy Fredbear. I stare at you. I watch you while you sleep. That's good to know, Fredbear.
Well, will Spring Bonnie show up in UCN 2?
Spring Bonnie.
Like, yeah, it's
Oh,
kind of interesting that to this point in the series, we haven't had like a normal Spring Bonnie appearance in regards to a 3D model that isn't something like Springtrap or Scraptrap, where it's a distorted version of the original.
yeah. I think Spring Bonnie could work, like especially if this was like a non-canon game. I know that there would be people who would have a problem with that, with like saying, "Oh no, Ultimate Custom Night has to be canon because they made uh Ultimate Custom Night 2 has to be canon because Ultimate Custom Night 1 was canon." And it's like, no.
God forbid, God forbid, there's a game where it isn't canon.
Ultimate Custom Night wasn't canon. Like my head canon is that Ultimate Custom Night wasn't
Like
canon.
either way, even if it was canon, it's kind of a way where it's like the exact specifics aren't too important. All that matters is fucking guys and boy at the end.
Yeah, it's like the reason why I believe that Ultimate Custom Night isn't canon because nobody knows who the character we're playing as is. Like a lot of people want to say it's William Afton and he's like serving his time in hell, but then you have William Afton as both Springtrap and Peanut Jimmy Neutron Trap also. So if we're playing as William Afton, how is he fending himself off at two different times? Like
Handstand.
that to me is what makes Ultimate Custom Night non-canon because it that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I don't think Scott Cawthon was really thinking about the canonicity of like Ultimate Custom Night because to him it was going to be the final game. He
Like
was
there's a line from Mr. Hippo that kind of brings that up. Like, yeah, I'll just search up the quote, but carry on.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking of. I love listening to those quotes, so you can keep looking for them. You can play them if you want. Um, you
Well,
might
there's no
go ahead.
Well, there's no good answer to that, but perhaps I met a demise of my own at some point, and this is my afterlife, or my dream, or whatever it means. I honestly don't know. Or maybe it doesn't mean anything at all.
Yeah,
Maybe it doesn't mean anything at all.
exactly. And like that line right there, that also like makes another good point that the game isn't canon. Uh, some people tried to have argued saying, "Oh, it is canon. We're playing as Mike." But here's a good question: why would Michael Afton be sent to hell after all the things he tried to do? Like, why would he be sent to hell or purgatory? Because Scott Cawthon has made it very clear. Not trying to talk about religion or anything. I'm just bringing this up in terms of like the universe of the games. Scott Cawthon is a religious man. Um, and he has confirmed that in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe, heaven, hell, and purgatory does exist. And Michael Afton, for the most part, was a good, well meaning character. So why would he be sent to hell after he died? Like, and I'm not the first person to bring up that question.
As a whole, there's a lot I could say about the matter, but I'll try to avoid sidetracking it too much.
Yeah, so like I would not have a problem with Ultimate Custom Night 2 also being non-canon. It could add a lore, like you could definitely add a lore, but you know, as long as you acknowledge that it's non-canon, like
Like, if it is canon, it's kind of in the FNAF world. Don't take everything too seriously. It's kind of more of a basic idea more than anything.
Like, the only way I could see an Ultimate Custom Night game where you have Nurse Dolly being in the same area as Foxy the Pirate from FNAF 1 and Roxanne Wolf from Security Breach, and I am terrified to find out what you are going to do with my Wolfie. I would laugh if you drew a mustache on her. Oh no. I just peek. Oh no. Oh no.
That's all.
That is all. Oh,
Carry on.
I thought you were going. I thought you were gonna totally like draw. I wouldn't have
Nah,
minded
she's
if
fine.
like you drew a mustache on her and stuff. I was actually kind of excited for like the way you were going to mess around with like the picture and like see like what kind of crazy stuff you're gonna do. sometimes the best twist is that there is no twist. But yeah, so like the only way that you could make Ultimate Custom Night 2 canon where like Nurse Dolly is in the same place as Foxy the Pirate from FNAF 1 and Roxanne Wolf from Security Breach and Circus Baby from like either Sister Location or Help Wanted 2 is if you made the revelation that the game was a dream. And a lot of people would be like, well, that's kind of lame.
Man, I wonder what other game people thought would have been very lame if it was all just a dream. But
Yeah, we're not.
yeah,
I
we're not
don't.
gonna talk about it.
I
We'll
don't.
save that for another time.
I don't think Steel Wool would want to tread that territory again. But that would seriously be the only way you could make a game with that many different characters with that from that many different eras canon. So yeah, like there really wouldn't be a story to the game. And you know, I honestly think that's okay. I don't think every Five Nights at Freddy's game needs to have a story. If you just want to focus on if Steel Wool ever wanted to focus on a Five Nights at Freddy's game that was just all gameplay, no story, I would be completely down with that. In fact, I would actually welcome it. And I think like Ultimate Custom Night 2 would be the best, would be like the best place to do that. I don't know. Would you agree with that?
Sorry, I zoomed out for a bit.
Well, you were making another beautiful art piece. Looks like you
Yeah.
made kind of like an icon. I asked like I said that if Steel Wool wanted to make a game that was all gameplay, like a Five Nights at Freddy's game that was all gameplay, no story, I think Ultimate Custom Night 2 would be like the best place to do that.
Yeah.
And then I asked you
Like-
would you
Like the only,
agree?
like pretty much. So like the only other game that really fits that model is like Five Laps. But
Yeah.
who knows about Five Laps? It's kind of weird that the game hasn't really gotten a mention after its initial demo when first like first week or so patch. It's kind of interesting. We haven't heard basically anything about it in a while.
Yeah, briefly talking about that game for a second before we get back to Ultimate Custom Night 2. I heard that they're actually going to try to find a way to make that game canon. I don't know how, but they're going to try to find a way to do it. I think that's one of the reasons why they're taking so long with like developing it, because they're going to try to find a way to make a Five Nights at Freddy's racing game canon to the rest of the series. And the reason why we haven't heard so much about uh, Five Nights at Freddy's is because the demo was such a train wreck and so messed up that I think it ruined any chance of that game like succeeding. Like, unless they make it absolutely perfect and as close to bug free as possible on initial release. Like, that's why I don't think we haven't heard anything about Five Laps at Freddy's, is because they're purposely hiding that game until it's like in a near perfect launch state.
Like perhaps they kind of realized they don't want to have another FNAF World type situation,
Or security breach
or
situation.
both.
Or both.
Well, a lot of games really.
Yeah. So, um,
I'm so happy for Happy Frog.
yeah. So, like, so we'll quickly go over the characters, and then I think we'll like wrap things up. Oh my gosh, there he is. Moon.
Moon
Uh,
underscore icon.
yeah. Um, so I guess like the easiest way that we could talk about like what characters would make it into game and which characters would it is, we can talk about what characters we would want to be in the game. So do you want to go first?
What would Mystic Hippo do hypothetically as an example?
Um, Mystic Hippo, I think, would be a distraction. So, or like you would have to play a card game with her to like stop her from making noise. So like you would have to play that card game that was only available in like the VR2 version. But it would be like a flat mode version of the game that would be with like more simplified mechanics. And you would have to like win the game, or like I don't think you would have to win the game. Like you would just have to play the game with her until she's like satisfied, or like told you your future or whatever. And the way like her mechanic would work is because she's supposed to be like a psychic or whatever. What would actually be going on is that her character coding would be in tune with the other characters' codings in terms of like where they are throughout the map and everything. So like it would be like she'd be able to predict the future by saying, oh, like she would be able to tell you like what kind of situation you're in, or like if any animatronic is about to get you by like either saying, oh, I don't see a bright future ahead of you this night. If like one of the animatronics are about to make it into the room, or if you are about to have a fail situation where an animatronic is going to chase you throughout the room until the shift is over, like she could do that. Or you know, if you're doing just fine but you're having trouble finding a animatronic because they're like an event or something, she could say something like, I sense a great disturbance in one of the vents, or something like she could be like a mix between like a hint system and a fortune teller. That would actually be kind of cool. Like a lot of people would probably want to put Mystic Hippo in the room just to like see what she could do, like because you could manipulate her coding with like the rest of the game to have her quote unquote see into the future or see into the world beyond what the player character could see. That could really work. I actually agree with you that I would want Mystic Hippo in Ultimate Custom Night. Are there any other characters that you can think of off the top
Like
of the
that
head?
to like that with that. I kind of what I was thinking about is I felt like what would particularly make sense with her is kind of her to act like the rock star, yeah, Rockstar Foxy equivalent. A character who sometimes will give you a beneficial thing, but rather than instant kill you, if you get a bad thing, say make the night harder as a result.
Yeah, well, I
Have
don't.
a
Oh,
perhaps you could implement the card game into that, where depending on what card you pick up, say you have to look for a good fortune card, that will give you a good benefit. But if you mess up the card game, you're gonna be debuffed in some way.
oh
Say your
yeah.
character becomes more aggressive. You know,
Yes. So if you like get a bad hand, the game's RNG will be shifted to not work in your favor. But if you win the game or she tells a good fortune, the game's RNG will take it easy on you and actually might even reset some of the animatronics who are like halfway down the hall or like halfway through a vent or like make Nurse Dolly moonwalk backwards without having to use any of the trash, and it'd make Mystic Hippo look like she has some sort of psychic powers or something. She would be a really cool character to actually have in Ultimate Custom Night 2. Oh, go ahead.
so for what would you do for Dolly?
Uh,
Like,
Nurse Dolly, I pretty much explained
yeah,
her mechanic. She would work exactly like her boss fight in Secret of the Mimic, where she would be on the conveyor belt and she would just slowly walk towards you, and you would have to run on the conveyor belt towards her and go up to the levers and like pull the levers down to make the trash appear on the conveyor belt to push her back. And the levers would be timed just like they are in Secret of the Mimic. But instead of eventually pushing her into the pit that she goes into, you just keep doing that throughout the entire night until 6 a.m. Like the most you can do to her is just like push her to the end of the conveyor belt and like make her
yeah,
like push her against the back of a wall or something. But you can't like get rid of her. You can like momentarily stun her at best throughout the entire night. And that would actually be kind of cool because she would be like a constant threat and presence. And like I said, if you have Mystic Hippo in like the same room as her at the like during a custom night and you get a good hand, like a magic sound could play from Mystic Hippo's box and you could see like Dolly moonwalking backwards on her own. Like that's what I mean, like how some of the characters could actually indirectly interact with each other. Like the more we talk about this, the cooler this Ultimate Custom Night 2 game
yeah.
sounds. Like Steel Wool needs to make an Ultimate Custom Night 2 or like an Ultimate Custom Night sequel.
That's not. There's a lot of potential with the idea in general.
Yeah, like are there any other characters you can think of that we haven't already talked about? Oh my gosh. um so one character that I would certainly want to see. I almost lost my train of thought for a second. Would be Monty. I don't know why he just popped into my head. He wasn't the animatronic I was thinking of, but Monty would be kind of cool because his boss fight would, well, not boss fight, his mechanic would work exactly like how it did in Security Breach, where like instead of like shooting a ball gun into a bucket, you wouldn't have the ball guns or anything to fill up. You would just have Monty in the room, and he would just like stand there sometimes looking around, and then his voice line would be like, "Hey, little guy," before he starts like running after you, and then he like jumps up into the ceiling, and then like after a minute or two he comes back down, pauses, and like looks around for a little while before starting everything all over again. At least that's how I think his mechanic would work in like
Yeah.
in Ultimate Custom Night 2.
As a whole, there's kind of this, I guess, boss night or final rush. Theoretically, whatever this max mode would hypothetically be, whether it be the entire night or just a small portion, like you're playing through the night normally and this is all chaos and whatnot, and then at like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., the XLR shows up and just kind of brings in the custom characters, replaces all the characters with these four in particular.
Yeah. So there would be hidden characters, and like
Yeah.
the way that they would deal with having so many variations of like the same characters is that you would have certain characters appear on the menu around like the 5 empty slots that you would fill with like the character portraits of what characters you would want to go up against. But then like when you highlight a character and select it, a drop down menu would appear of like all the variations that appeared throughout the years, and these wouldn't be just skins of the characters. They would actually be like different versions with like different gameplay mechanics. So, like for example, with like Roxanne Wolf, when you go up to her and highlight her and then select her, you would have Security Breach Roxy, you would have Shattered Roxy, Ruined Roxy, and Help Wanted to Cracked Face Roxy. And
Yeah,
each
right now
one,
Penta's a little unstable, but you know.
and each one of them would have their own different gameplay mechanics that you could choose from like Roxy's drop down menu. So like Security Breach Roxy would walk around outside of your room in the hallways, and as soon as she approaches a door, you would either have to close the door on her or electrify the door like in Security Breach. And then Shattered Roxy would be blind, but she could hear you. And so like every time like she approaches your room, you have to stay absolutely still until you hear her like whine again, like do one of her whining voice lines, and she turns around and walks away. And if you make any sound when she approaches your room, she automatically comes in, and that grace period like final rush thing would happen where you would have to deal with an angry blind Roxy for like the rest of the night. And then like I said, Help Wanted 2 Roxy would just be sitting at the table and waiting for you to do a makeover with her. And I don't think there would really be any kind of gameplay mechanic that you could do with Ruined Roxy, because all you did with Ruined Roxy was make her bash her head through a bunch of wooden planks. I don't know how you would be able to implement that into Ultimate Custom Night 2. Because that would get pretty annoying, having an animatronic that you would have to run around all the time and get her to run through planks to like satisfy her while you're dealing with everything else, like a lot of people would see that as like a really stupid mechanic. Plus, how would you get an enemy like that to leave the room? If you could even get them to leave the room. So I think like Ruined Roxy would be excluded.
Yeah.
But like, and when you choose a character from a drop-down menu, it's not like you can go back to that character and choose another version of them from the drop-down menu. Once you choose a character, you can't choose another version of that character. The game wouldn't let you. You would have to choose like a completely separate character. That's why like the custom animatronic could work so well as like a mirror of like if you want to have like two of the same character in without technically having two of the same character at the same time. So yeah, just oh
Yeah. That's just ignore that.
okay. I'm just trying to think of like what other characters would I want to have in there. So well, I guess like the last thing that we should probably talk about and like ask ourselves is like well, I just thought of another character that's actually on screen right now that'd actually be kind of cool to go up against in Ultimate Custom Night 2. That would be the Mimic. Like the Mimic would have a really cool mechanic where like
honestly what came to mind more as a different idea with him, like not necessarily him having a gimmick, but the fact that he can steal anyone's gimmick at any time.
Oh yeah,
mimicking their appearance. But once they've done their gimmick, once you've taken care of them, they come back under another costume and does another gimmick.
Yeah,
and that
so
what his twist is.
Basically, the Mimic would be the Shang Tsung of Ultimate Custom Night 2, where like he could copy anyone's ability. So basically, he would be a wild card. Like my initial idea for the concept of the Mimic is that he would be outside of the room for the most part, but then when he comes into the room, not all hope is lost. He would come into the room in like some costume that he wears in like Secret of the Mimic, or like some approximate costume of like one of the characters available in the game, and he walks around and stuff, and you would have to like hide in a locker temporarily. And he doesn't stay in the room. Like he would only be in the room for like 10 seconds until like he couldn't find you, gets bored, and then leaves the room. But if he like spots you, you have like a grace period where you can like go in the locker. But your idea is actually a lot better. Where like if you choose the Mimic, he's a wild card that can like copy anyone's ability. Like so like you wouldn't know which animatronic you were. He would basically act as the random animatronic, so like option. So you could technically have 3 of the same animatronic without having them look exactly the same and still keep things interesting. So like again, going back to Nurse Dolly, I don't know why I've talked so much about Nurse Dolly in this podcast episode. I think it's just because her area is so much fun in Secret of the Mimic. I just enjoyed that area so much. I think it was like my favorite part of that game. But going back to Nurse Dolly, let's say you want to have 3 Nurse Dolly boss fights. I don't know what kind of masochist would want to do that, but if you wanted to, you could choose Nurse Dolly, then you could choose your custom animatronic to have the same mechanic as Nurse Dolly. Then if you choose the Mimic, and the Mimic just so happens to decide it also wants to mimic Nurse Dolly, you could end up with a custom night, oh my gosh, you could end up with a custom night where where you could have 3 conveyor belts and 3 nulls. What the hell is that word? 3 Nurse Dolly boss fights that you have to deal with at the same time, plus 2 other animatronics. Like, oh my gosh, this game just sounds so amazing.
Essentially, why I brought these 4 in particular is this hypothetical boss night I had, or 6 a.m. etc. type state.
Oh yeah.
Where at whatever your max mode is, at some point in the night, XLR shows up and replaces all of them with these 4. As I said, mimic would, as I said, just mimic whatever character he wants, and every time you deal with him, he's like, "Oh, I'm back as this guy. Oh, I'm back as Dolly. Oh, I'm back as Ennard, etc."
Okay. So,
Ennard.
oh,
Yeah. Carry on.
So basically what you're trying to say is, like, I'm going to extend and, like, elaborate on what I think you're trying to say. So feel free to correct me at any time, or, like, fill in the blanks if I have any blanks, as you make Golden Freddy dance like a smooth criminal. So there would be challenges, and these challenges would kind of act like the levels, and if you manage to beat all the challenges, you would then have like a boss mode that would have like certain characters in like these boss nights where you deal with like tougher than usual characters or tougher than usual variations of characters. And then, like, for like the final boss run, you would have Glitch Trap, Golden Freddy, Ennard, and the Mimic, who would, like, no matter what character the Mimic is mimicking, they would be that character, but like on steroids, like amped up to 11.
Honestly, why it's not even necessarily that the Mimic is much stronger. It's more that because he's changing so often, you can't necessarily know what he's up to until you take a look at his costume and be like, oh yeah, he's doing this now. Okay, I'll deal with him. But then once you deal with that, he's gonna swap off. And you're just dealing with this constant cycle of trying to make sure he's in check.
Oh
but
yeah.
Ennard's gonna do his sister location thing where he's like acting as the boss. Oh, he's at the doors, you gotta keep him out. And he's constantly doing that.
Yes.
But the same But hypothetically, using like the FNAF 2 outfit as an example, Ghost Trap kind of acts like with a Foxy, but rather than going away, he just slowly kind of itches up if you're not looking at him. So you're trying to deal with him, keep him in that hallway as long as you can, not enter your office. But then Yellow Bear or Red Bear or whatever you want to represent him as, he kind of would act like FNAF 1 Freddy, where he's just constantly going from camera to camera to camera until he reaches your door, and at that point, there's nothing you can do. If you close the door on him, he's just gonna keep lunking in until he gets in.
Yeah.
You're left with dealing with all 4 of them, constantly having to deal with checking on Ender to make sure he doesn't get in your doors, making sure Fredbear and Spring Boy keep their stage, and just making sure Mimic isn't doing something that you don't know what they're doing to.
Yeah.
Having to remember every single character at once.
So, like, another thing that I just thought of is some of the challenge modes could have characters in them that you can't pick from the roster. But, like, once you beat them, they could be unlocked as, like, you know, special characters. Meaning they don't have any variations of them. They're just themselves, but they're like boss characters, and you can't choose their difficulty also. I'm sorry if I'm making you repeat yourself, but I forget if you said like what Glitch Trap would do.
Like all it matters is the initial idea I had was kind of just a hallway character, one that slowly progresses if you're not looking at him, and you just have to keep stalling him to make sure he never gets into your office.
Okay. Yeah, because that's kind of what he did in Help Wanted.
Well, with Yellow Bear, he's more like FNAF 1 Freddy, where he only shows up on the cameras, and once he's at your door, you're kind of screwed. He's got to bang on it until he breaks in.
So, like, for the final boss rush, most of the characters, you don't want them getting in your room, because if they do, you're screwed. The only one that would be the exception is the Mimic, because the Mimic would become like some characters that would start out in your room. So like during the boss rush, you could have the Mimic become like Roxanne wanting a makeover, or he could, like, what would be really messed up is if like the Mimic became another glitch trap, or became like,
I bet he'll probably be like the exception to certain mechanics, but in general, he could swap between most of them.
Yeah, like, yeah, I actually kind of like that wild card mechanic with like the boss rush mode. That would be really cool. And it's like, and like the great thing about like actually having limitations in Ultimate Custom Night 2, because like the biggest problem that I had with Ultimate Custom Night 1 is because there was the possibility of having all the characters active at once. Scott Cawthon had to like think of like a unique thing for each character to do, even though some of the characters repeated things that other characters did. Some of the game mechanics didn't make sense for like some of the characters he came up with, like Foxy taking himself apart and putting himself back together in your room. I'm like, that's not something Foxy would do. And then Bonnie was like hanging out in Foxy's Cove. I'm like, why?
It's like these two have never really interacted that way.
It's like, why the hell would Bonnie be hanging out in Pirate's Cove? And why would he just scream at you if you like saw him on the camera, like you were peeping in on him taking a shower?
Like, I could maybe understand for like Wither Vibe, but why regular Bonnie?
Yeah. Whereas in a game where you could only select 5 animatronics at a time, it really wouldn't be all that big of a deal if some of the characters had similar mechanics to each other, but with like slight variations, because you could excuse it, or you know, you could make up for it by saying, oh well, this character has a slightly different version of this mechanic from this character, and it's okay because there's only 5 animatronics or enemies coming after me at a time. So it's okay that these two characters have similar game mechanics to each other. So like if you really wanted to, you could recreate like Five Nights at Freddy's 1 if you wanted to, and it wouldn't really matter if Bonnie and Chica had the same gameplay mechanics like they did in Five Nights at Freddy's 1, where like one only approaches one door, one approaches the other door on the other side. And then like, you know, if you wanted to include like the FNAF 2 animatronics, and their shtick is that they just climb into the vent and then just appear, go, who's your daddy? And you put on the mask. But yeah, so like, no, like I honestly think like people seem to underestimate like the power of limitations. Like if Steel Wool were to work within limitations, like Ultimate Custom Night 2, my final say on an Ultimate Custom Night 2 is that if Steel Wool worked with limitations, didn't try to copy Ultimate Custom Night 1, they could come up with something really special. And even if it was like a little buggy upon release, like it wouldn't be all that big of a deal, because you would be dealing with like only 5 animatronics at a time. So like 5 buggy animatronics wouldn't be a big deal. It's like, oh my gosh, you're making them worship Panst.
The true final boss of the game. Nobody's prepared for what Pan-San could do.
Oh, could you imagine if that was the case? Like the true final boss is like Pan-Stan. You can't choose any other animatronics. The final boss is Pan-Stan, but then like Pan-Stan turns into like some Lovecraftian monster, or it's like
it becomes Nightmare Bear 5.
Yeah, or it's like Pan-Stan's true form is the Tangle. The Tangle returns. And like Panstan is like the ultimate tamer of like the Tangle. Like Panstan is the one that controls like just something stupid like that. Like throughout the game there are like stupid comedic moments like that to like freshen things up. I would totally love that because Ultimate Custom Night 1 had things like that. And I would love to see like Steel Wool just get nutty with some of the things they could do with like some of the characters. Like I would love a cutscene where like Glitch Trap, Mimic, Ennard, and Golden Freddy all get in, all walk up to Panstan and bow before him, all hailing him. Like they were, like he was their Lord and Savior. And everyone watching this cutscene is like, what?
They were not prepared for this, Lord.
And then like at the very end of the game, the final boss with Panstan, it all makes sense because it turns out he's this Lovecraftian creature that could control the Tangle.
They were not prepared for the not Tangle lore.
Yeah. And, but those are like my final thoughts on like Ultimate. Do you have any final thoughts on like that you couldn't get in while we were talking about like Ultimate Custom Night 2?
No, that's basically everything.
Okay, I think we covered everything we wanted to about Ultimate Custom Night 2. So if you've made it this far, what do you all think? What would you want in an Ultimate Custom Night 2 game made by Steel Wool? Would you even want it to be made by Steel Wool? Or would you want some indie company to like make this game instead? And just a little small reminder, and this is how I know if you've made it this far. If we reach 500 subscribers, I said this in a previous video that I got rid of, that if I reached 1,000 subscribers I would do this, but if I am going to bump it down to 500 subscribers, if I reach 500 subscribers, I will make a video where I go to a hair salon and get my hair styled and dyed the same color as Roxanne Wolf's. And I will make that an emoticon in the memberships. Just my face with Roxanne Wolf's hair. It'd be a great time. But thank you all for watching who has made it this far. We're gonna admire the art that Box has made.
The egg baby continues.